Welcome to the Trusted Coach Directory. I'm Helen Isacke, founder of the directory, and I'm delighted to introduce the first in a series of expert interviews with our Trusted Coach Directory coaches who have a wealth of experience and knowledge in the world of leadership and management development. Coaching is an unregulated industry where anyone can call themselves a coach, and so all our listed coaches have demonstrated that they meet our strict criteria for joining, and this sets them apart from those who profess to be a coach with either none or little experience or qualifications. We now have 99, to be exact, coaches nationwide, from Penzance to north of Edinburgh. Alison Haill joins me today, and Alison has kindly agreed to be interviewed, and she's also one of our founder members of the directory, having joined when we very first started in November 2016. So let me introduce you to Alison. Alison Haill is an experienced executive coach and leadership communication specialist. Alison is also the author of the F Factor Coaching Handbook for Workplace Coaches. And Alison, I'm sure you've written another book since my notes here. Alison works with executives and senior managers to increase leadership impact and personal performance, enabling them to access their inner capabilities and potential in the UK and internationally. Alison's 40-year track record, surely it can't be 40 years, Alison. This track record is working internationally with leaders and managers in business communication has given her wide-ranging experience across cultures, industries and sectors, from banking, engineering and IT to oil and gas, from education to shipping. So that's my introduction for Alison, and I'm going to I'm going to stop sharing this slide now, just so that you can see Alison in her full glory. Alison, thank you so much for joining us today in what is very unusual times for us in March 2020.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to do this interview and for that very fulsome introduction. Glad to be here.
Great. So, Alison, today we are talking about resilience and about our inner strength and about scary times, and they certainly are scary times at the moment. There are lots of topics that we could have talked about today. Why did we choose this topic?
Well, it was the first thing I thought of when we spoke earlier a couple of weeks ago, when we just heard that the UK was following Italy in this scary headlong rush towards a real crisis like we'd never seen before. And I immediately felt that there was an opportunity, that this is an opportunity for coaches to do their work and be helpful, because we're used to helping our clients through challenging times, through all kinds of crises. And I immediately felt, here's something that we can do. Here's a situation where we can be helpful, where we can be of service. And I actually felt quite optimistic then. But at the same time, I was very aware that I was lucky to feel like that, and that people were already beginning to feel very, very anxious, and other people were suffering with depression at home because they knew they'd be having to stay in. And so I just felt that resilience was the topic that was going to be important. And I think that conversation you and I had was about a week or 10 days ago, and I think it's still relevant, probably more so actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And resilience is a word that's used a lot, isn't it, by lots of people, particularly in coaching, through any kind of difficult times. What does resilience mean?
Well, of course, I was thinking about this because this is not my field of expertise. You know, I don't give regular talks on resilience. I just want to make that clear. I'm pulling from my own life experience and my experience as a coach. And so last night I was thinking, well, I'll probably be asked what my definition is. And so I did look it up in the dictionary, and there's something there about, I didn't write it down, but there's something about that a shape that can spring back into its normal shape after being squashed or pulled out of shape. And I think that's what we think normally of as resilience, as being the ability to bounce back into shape after you've had some grueling time or some particular crisis. So you might have been pulled out of shape or off the path, as it were, but to be able to bounce back and be as strong as you were initially. And I think in terms of leadership and coaching, we normally think of resilience as meaning we will bounce back to where we were, and if possible, better. So in our space as coaching, we're thinking of resilience as being the ability not just to recover, but to recover stronger. So I think that's what it normally means to me. Although I think it's slightly different now, and that's another thing.
Yeah, I remember it being described as like a rubber band. So you've got a rubber band in its original form, and then it gets stretched and stretched and stretched, and we're all being very stretched. But it's then, as things get back to normal, whatever normal might be in the future, then that rubber band can get back to its original shape. It's having the ability to get back and to be resilient. We've talked a bit about the current situation. What's different about the resilience that we need now?
Well, I was thinking it's a combination of things, because I know I've written in previous newsletters, because I write a bi-monthly newsletter to my community, and I know I've written before that the most valuable quality that you have is your confidence. But now in this new situation with the coronavirus, I'm beginning to rethink that, and I think possibly your most valuable quality is your health, actually. But when I was thinking of what does resilience mean now, I think it's a mixture of several things. I think it's confidence. I think it's well-being and health. I think it's courage. I think it's the optimism, an ability to see a way out, to see that there's a positive ending. I think resourcefulness comes into it. And I think the ability to plan, organize, and take action. I think they're all in there. So it suddenly seems to be, a basket of things now that is going to mean our resilience in this moment of extreme, unknown, unpredictable, never before seen situation.
Yeah, I think for me, it's also about mindset. It's, we can just keep watching the news, get more information, and anything that's talked about, it's overanalyzed, and you can get sucked into this hole of, oh my goodness, will I be able to go outside, in a week's time, or whatever it is. So for me, it's about resilience, it's about mindset, it's about what we're thinking, what we're saying to ourselves. Even the songs that we sing, sometimes it's easy to pick up on a song and it's a bit somber, but then it's how to click into that, feeling positive and confident again, and being more resourceful, as you say. So for me, it's about that inner dialogue that we're having with ourselves. So if we're starting to feel anxious, it's thinking about, what am I saying to myself, and how do I need to change that inner dialogue? So that was just something coming up for me. Leaders are going through a huge amount, and workers are looking towards their leaders. So isn't leadership a more important quality than resilience at this time?
Well, I think probably our listeners, and actually, I was going to ask you this question before we even started, but I forgot because we had some technical difficulties. I think our listeners to this interview are likely to be leaders and managers and or coaches, given that that's who our clients are, and also our colleagues. So I think an important thing to say for coaches is that this is a time when we become leaders, because we know that we can do good work in this time, and that we have the ability and the training to manage our mindset so that we can be resilient, that we can manage the fearful thoughts that inevitably will come, and that we can manage our mindset so that we can see opportunities and reasons for optimism, with some people finding that easier than others, of course. So one thing is that we can all be leaders here. I mean, all we coaches can be leaders, but even people who aren't coaches and who aren't managers in their normal life can be leaders by using their inner resilience, doing things that are going to be helpful for themselves and for their community. And I think we can all be role models in a way like that. But the question you were asking, I think, is more about, if we're thinking of managers and people at work who are our clients, is it leadership that is needed now, or is it resilience? Well, I think both, because if you're good at the leadership type of stuff, but actually you're not resilient, you don't have the mindset that can keep strong, you don't look after your health, you drink too much, or you eat unwisely, or you're living on 3 to 4 hours of sleep, as Margaret Thatcher was supposed to be doing most of her life, you're not going to have that resilience. You may have it for a certain time, but in this situation we're in now, we don't know how long it's going to last. You know, it's not going to be a little mini crisis. It could be very far reaching because of the steps that the government has had to take. It can be very far reaching in terms of the health of the community, the health of the business world, employee safety, how employees are going to work in the future, everything. And so I think we need to see resilience as separate from leadership, because that way it will get proper nourishment. And I think I really do strongly feel that we need to nourish our resilience at the moment, because that's going to allow us to keep our leadership going. And yes, as you say, mindset is part of it. I was thinking recently that there were 3 things: health. We think healthy mind, healthy body, but also healthy conversation. I do think that people criticizing what we're being told to do is not helpful, because it stops us pulling together. I think we have to watch what we say and think about the community and our contribution to the well-being of the whole community. And I think our conversation is part of that. But the healthy mind, yes, you're absolutely right, that it's about managing your fears, recognizing them, and realizing that it's not crazy to be fearful. These are fearful times, and that's our brains telling us, adrenaline, come on, do things, look out for your toilet rolls and your this and your that and the other. But the problem is that the adrenaline is fighting, the survival, the old part of the brain back here, is fighting with your creative, more sophisticated thinking and planning. And I find myself that it's very easy to get distracted by a new alert coming on the phone, or a new piece of news that somebody tells you. And we can get too alert, too much adrenaline. And so I think we have to discipline ourselves to not being open to information coming in about the emergency at every hour. I'm really, one of the things that I'm doing for myself is to limit my taking in of the news to the Today program in the morning, and I do listen at lunchtime. and the 10 o'clock news at night. But I actually wish the 10 o'clock news would come a bit earlier. I'd like there to be a 10 o'clock news at 9 instead, because then it would give a chance to listen to the news and also get some decent sleep. Because sleep is very, very important for managing stress and for keeping healthy. And I think there are the dangers that we use so much screen time at the moment, and news time, and alcohol, and things which stop us sleeping well. And I don't think that is going to keep our resilience in its most resilient form.
And so, I mean, you've shared a lot of advice already. So talking about, you know, keeping healthy, where to focus your attention, minimizing your attention on, you know, watching the news, being very selective on what you watch, selective on what you listen to, managing your thoughts, you know, keeping a healthy body as well as mind. What else? Is there any other advice specifically you'd like to share, or share what's worked for you personally in addition to what you've already said?
Well, I'm thinking there is a quote that I wanted to read because I found that very inspiring, and I think it could be also inspiring for our listeners. But other things that I have, I think music is very good. In fact, I've been pretty upbeat for the last 2 weeks. I've been, as I said at the beginning, but this morning, strangely enough, I woke an hour earlier than usual, and I lay in bed feeling really quite scared. And so I had to try some of my own methods, and I used slow breathing. I used a favorite technique of mine is to think of 3 positive words to describe my identity, or how I would like my identity to be. And so I thought this morning of calm and courageous. Can't remember what the third one was, but I soon did calm down, and the breathing was very helpful. But another thing that I was thinking of, that I heard yesterday about someone who was talking about a box of treats. You could have a box of treats in your house, and you have in there things that you would pick out and get pleasure from if you hit a down moment, because we're all going to have downs and ups. And this woman was talking about having a scented candle in there, and a favorite book. And I think that's a nice idea, and I might start thinking about what I would put in there. And I was wondering what my favorite reading would be, because actually I certainly wouldn't want to read anything about dystopia, but I might read, you know, the Cicero trilogy again, because that's about a period which is far enough away that doesn't impinge. I also heard, I went on a fear course once, some time ago, in order to learn some techniques for my clients. And one of the things which I thought was wonderful was to make a selection of up tracks from pop or Wagner or whatever it is that makes you feel good. And at the time, I did 10, you choose 10 tracks and you put them in a playlist in your iTunes, and then you can pick them up, you know, when you need a pick-me-up. And mine had the 3 tenors, and it's got Pata Pata by Miriam Makeba, which was the first pop record I ever bought. And I Will Survive is another one I've chosen. So there'll be things that will pick you up when you feel that you need cheering up. And I think that's a really helpful technique that I got. What else did I write up here that I wanted to share? For me, setting up social meets have been fantastic. I've done it for the last week. We've had a family chat or a link with another friend. We do it at 6 o'clock in the evening. We have a glass of wine each side of the camera, and we chat, and it's been lovely. We're going to do a family quiz soon like that, and I did a party with 6 of my friends the other day as well. So I think that's something that's really nice to do. There are several apps you can use. There's Marketplace, which is a new one I've heard of for these group things. There's WhatsApp. I think you can do shared video with 3, and Zoom, of course, which is what we use for our coaching, isn't it, Helen?
We do, yeah.
So
there's some great ideas you're coming out with. And it was just sparking some things for me, just for the last couple of minutes before we have to round up. I was thinking on the radio, I used to be an avid Radio 4 listener, and like you, I'm minimising my sort of news input at the moment, just getting the most important information. But I'm listening to Gold Radio, and I love Gold Radio because it's, find the right era for me, 70s, 80s, it's great. And, I can be dancing around the kitchen. It's brilliant. I'm also thinking about what's good about the situation. And it's difficult to think what's good about it sometimes, but I've noticed I don't get any sales calls anymore. I'm working from home, so I've got the home phone. If I'm not here, I'm in the office. I don't hear them coming through. Occasionally I do if I pop back at lunchtime. We don't get any unwanted calls anymore. How fantastic is that? So I love it. The other thing that has been really good for me personally is from a family aspect, much more in touch. I always have a very close relationship with my sisters. Not such always in touch with my brother. And now the 4 of us, 4 siblings, we're on a WhatsApp group because we're talking about taking turns to call our mum. And we started sharing old photographs, which is great. So we're much more in touch, and also with neighbours as well. I just think, we're hearing it more and more how we're all there supporting our neighbours, being in touch with them. So we're getting to know our local community even better because we're not disappearing, whether it's 7 or 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning and back late at night. So there's some positives coming out already to sort of mitigate the difficult times that we're in.
Well, absolutely. And I think there's a chance we might get at. Sorry, I just wanted to say, and I know we agree on this. That this is actually a chance that we can improve the world that we're living in, and the way people are pulling together, and whether reluctantly or actually jumping into contributing. I think that's very positive, and a lot of kindness shown.
Yeah, and our being into one of the, I always remember when I did some work around resilience, it was the importance of your network. So it's keeping in touch with people and being in a very supportive environment, in addition to health, eating healthily, getting enough sleep, exercise, etc. Now I know we're just about to run out of time. I know you've got to dash, and we both have. Now you said you got some notes on, you're going to share some information, top tips around resilience.
And I was going to read that quote, but I think we've run out of time.
Okay.
So if any of you would like to get the quote from me and some of these tips that have come in the interview today, I'll gladly send them.
Right.
I think, Helen, if we can manage to take
Sure.
I'm going to share the email again.
Bear with me.
Yeah.
Get onto the next screen. There we go. So we have your email address, Alison, and your phone number as well.
Yes. Well, thank you very much, Helen, for arranging this.
You're welcome.